Evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Joe Davich, and I'm the Executive Director here at the Georgia Center for the Book. And on behalf of the Georgia Center for the Book, DeKalb County Public Library, the DeKalb Library Foundation, and Penguin Random House and HarperCollins Publishers, welcome to our 8th annual Fall Book Preview. So many of you wrote in and asked us if we were doing this again this year. And although our representatives have been so busy working with bookstores and libraries, we did manage to find a time, and we hope that you will enjoy their presentations this evening. I can assure you, after seeing the boxes of books that they sent in, that there are a lot of literary treats, even though we're in a little bit of a tricking kind of a season. So just a few things before we begin this evening. We have enabled live transcription for our hearing impaired patrons. So if you need to resize the font, find the CC button located at the top or the bottom of your screen. When you click on that, you can resize the font and make it a little more legible and easier to read for yourself. Also, we'd like to remind you that we will be doing a book giveaway with all the wonderful books that have come in this year, as well as some canvas totes that Penguin Random House has sent our way as well. So be sure that your first and your last name are on the screen as they were signed up in the email when you registered for this event. That way, when we do the drawing, we can make sure we are associating the email that we send with the right person who's in the room watching this evening. Once again, I would like to thank you all so very much for coming to our event this evening. We have some wonderful presentations tonight. There are some great books coming out this fall. And with the temperatures dropping, it is the perfect point in the season to curl up with a nice mug of a warm beverage and a great book. So beginning this evening is Eric Svensson from HarperCollins Publishers. Eric?
Hey, can you hear me? I hope you can. Hi, I'm Eric Svensson. I'm with HarperCollins Publishers. I cover the Southeast for Harper, and I'm gonna watch for my screen to come up here so I know we're all together. Thanks to Joe and the folks at the Georgia Center for the Book for putting this together. I know it's October. We usually were together in August, so a lot of the books, few of the books we're going to talk about tonight are already on sale, and you can find them in the store. That's the other. Yep, there we go. So I got some slides for you. We'll promote the first couple of titles we're going to talk about. There's 2, 4, 6, 7 of them are in store now, and we'll talk about the first one there that comes up. Next slide. Vanderbilt, that's Anderson Cooper. You know Anderson from CNN. He's a host there, 2-time.
Oh, sorry, Eric.
That's okay. I need to talk faster. We'll go back to Anderson Cooper. I'll tell about Anderson. There we go. So we got Anderson Cooper from CNN. He's had 2 New York Times #1 bestsellers before, and we're excited about this one. This is about his family, the Vanderbilts through his mother's side. Gloria Vanderbilt was his mother. It starts all the way back with the Cornelius, the Commodore, and when he built the shipping and transportation empire that made him the richest man in America when he died in 1877. It touches on their family legacy, the philanthropic endeavors, the lives of excess and opulence from the Gilded Age, 10 New York City mansions. You've got Rhode Island mansions like the Breakers, and even down towards my home state of North Carolina, you got Biltmore Mansion over there in Asheville. This chronicles the ambition, the excesses, the triumphs, and the tragedies of that family. And the good news also is that Anderson Cooper and Catherine Howe, who he wrote this book with, they're starting a new nonfiction series of other historical biographies. This has already been on sale. It peaked at #2 on the Times list, and next week it'll be #5 on the New York Times bestseller list. So check it out. And that was the first book. There's Bourdain, also on sale now. This past spring, Lori Woolaver brought to us the World Travel. That was a bestseller. And this is the definitive oral biography of Anthony Bourdain. Lori Woolaver was his assistant and his confidant, and she interviewed over 100 people from Anthony's life, his mother, his child, his coworkers, his friends, to give us this unprecedented kind of behind the scenes view into his life. Chronicles his childhood, his teen years, his relationships, his early work, with food, the industry, and including his kind of meteoric rise when 20 years ago, he released Kitchen Confidential. It was as high as number 5 on the Times list, and next week it's number 11 on the Times list, so it's still hanging in there. Dave Grohl, big book for us. This is The Storyteller. It's essay collection by the legendary drummer of Nirvana and the front man for the Foo Fighters. Covers a bunch of topics: his childhood, his life as a father, the creation of both his iconic bands, his activism, and his kind of cool inside stories with people like Paul McCartney, Iggy Pop, Joan Jett, Little Richard, Tom Petty. It's an intimate look into his life in the past 30 years of the music industry. Got a lot of photos from his own personal collection and neat things like flyers and lyric sheets and a lot of like that, the ephemera that makes these books so fun. This will be the number 1 book on the New York Times list next week. So grab a copy. I'll take your questions now. Also on sale now. This is Stephanie Grisham. She was an insider in the previous administration, not only as a press secretary for the First Lady and the personal assistant of the First Lady. She was also the press secretary for the president, kind of famous or infamous for never actually holding a press conference. It's for readers of books like A Warning or Disloyal or Melania and Me. And the book was secret until almost on sale. The magazine Axios got a copy up front, and they put out the news about that it was Stephanie Grisham was doing this tell-all. And the quote that I thought that was best was a former colleague of our author says that when I heard about this book, all I could think of was Stephanie surrounded by a lake of gasoline, striking a match with a grin on her face. So that's the kind of stuff that's going to be in this book. This was number 4 it's going to be number 4 on the New York Times bestseller list for nonfiction next week. And then there's The Taking of Jemima Boone. Matthew Pearl, you know from some great historical fiction. This is his first work of narrative nonfiction. It's an account of the kidnapping of Daniel Boone's daughter and 2 other girls by a Cherokee Shawnee raiding party near Kentucky. This is all true. This took place a couple of weeks after the signing of the Declaration of Independence in 1776. It documents a days-long chase by the legendary frontiersman to save his daughter. This true story was the inspiration for James Fenimore Cooper's The Last of the Mohicans. And it really vividly illustrates the early days of American westward expansion, manifest destiny, and the clash between the Americans going west and the native cultures that were already existing and struggling to deal with these invaders. This goes on sale. This was on sale a couple weeks ago, and it's available in hardcover. Tales from the Cafe. This is a sequel to Before the Coffee Gets Cold. And if you don't know that one, let me briefly tell you about it. Tales from Before the Coffee Gets Cold is a time travel novel. We imported it from Japan. It was a bestseller. The hook on this one is that there's a cafe that's been brewing this special kind of coffee for like 100 years. And it allows you to time travel briefly. You can go back to any time you want, but you can only stay as long as the cup of coffee you bought stays warm. If you don't come back before the coffee gets cold, you're going to be in trouble. Bad things will happen. So the first book did very well for us. We sold a bunch of copies here. It was an international bestseller, and we're doing a sequel to it, a follow-up. And in this, 4 more people get to take advantage of the time-traveling coffee from this cafe, and they get to revisit moments with their family, friends, and lovers. The novel, once again, like the first, invites you to ask yourself, what would you do if you could travel back in time? Where would you go? Who would you see? Love this book. The Boys, it's Ron and Clint Howard. You know them best from more likely their childhood acting. They were acting brothers. They appeared in some of the most iconic shows of the 60s and the 70s. Andy Griffith Show, Happy Days, Gentle Ben, Star Trek. It's rich in anecdotes and stories about what it's like to be childhood actors in the middle of the 20th century. It gives a lot of backstory about their family. Originally from Oklahoma, Ron and Clint's father and mother moved to Hollywood because they wanted to be in the movies. They wanted to be celebrity movie stars. And it turns out their children were the ones who did it, and they were very supportive. It's an account of what Ron and Clint did. They felt like they lived an all-American childhood and adolescence, but often it wasn't. Great memoir. And that's all the ones that are in store now. So rush out and get those. Those are great gifts for the holidays. And then I got a couple of titles for you here that are coming soon. They'll be available in, later this month, November and December. And the first one is A Line to Kill Anthony Horowitz. We know Anthony, he's done dozens of New York Times bestsellers. Most recently for us, he's done a neat series of mysteries that also tie into the book world. Two most recent are The Word is Murder and The Sentence is Death. We got two main characters. Daniel Hawthorne is the kind of inspector, ex-inspector, police officer, and he has a helpful sidekick who happens to be Anthony Horowitz, the author. And so a lot of the mysteries are book related, and this one's no different. They're gonna, they're invited to a British island, a dark and mysterious British island, for a book festival. And while they're there, someone is murdered. So you have this perfect locked room mystery. Somebody on the island is the killer, and hopefully Hawthorne and Horowitz are going to cipher it out for us. This actually goes on sale tomorrow, so you can look for it in stores starting tomorrow morning. The White Ship. I love this one. I'm a history geek myself, so if you know somebody or love somebody who's a history fan, please consider this one. It's written by Charles Spencer, who is the brother of Lady Diana Spencer. So he writes books on royalty, monarchy, and this one's no different. This was originally published in the UK last year to celebrate the 900th anniversary of the sinking of the White Ship. Very briefly, Henry I was the King of England from 1100 to 1135. He had, around 1120, he was returning from 4 years of campaigning on the mainland, and he had conquered and kind of taken over ruling of a lot of the land over there. And he sent all his people home, including his heir, William, his firstborn heir, who was to be the future king. They started drinking on the ship, and things got a little sideways. The ship crashed, and the White Ship, of 300 people on board, only one survived, and it wasn't the heir to the throne. And what that did was eliminated the heir, the secured heir to the British throne. And it kind of set almost like a Game of Thrones real life situation where the Normans, the Welsh, the Scots, the Irish, everybody is suddenly competing for who will be, at the death of Henry, who will be in charge of England. I love it. It's great nonfiction, and recommend it for anybody who likes, Anglophiles or history lovers or monarchy lovers. All Our Little Secrets. I tagged this one because for conversation today for a number of reasons. First and foremost, it's a great mystery novel. Also, it's our lead read title for the season. We pick one novel each season. We vote on it in-house with editor, publicity, marketing, sales. We all vote on our favorite books, and this was the #1 winner for the fall of 2021. It's also a local Atlanta author, Wanda Morris. She's a local lawyer in town. It's a twisty lawyer mystery for fans of Alyssa Cole, Harlan Coben, and Attica Locke. The kind of gist of this one is that a young Black lawyer finds her white boss murdered. He's also her lover. And it sets in a chain of events where she has to deny finding the body, deny their relationship. She has a lot of reasons. We'll find out why she doesn't want to be investigated. It deals with all kinds of stuff like racism, code switching, privilege, white privilege. We think it's going to be a major launch to a career for our local Atlanta office. I hope you take a look at it. Mitch Albom's got a new one. This is most likely, I think, for fans who may have who like the 5 People You Meet in Heaven, or the first phone call from heaven. It's another kind of heaven-related story. The Stranger in the Lifeboat is about 9 people who've been on a shipwreck. There's been an explosion. 9 people have survived. They're in this boat. After 3 days, they're running out of food. They're running out of water. Another person floats up, and they say, all right, we'll bring him in. And when he comes onto the ship, he says, I am the Lord. And he says, and if you believe in me, I will save you. And it's only, it's like when you're in peril and you pray for God to help you, what would you do if he showed up? It's kind of fascinating. It's a twisty, what happened to cause the explosion? Who are these people on the boat? Are we already in heaven? Are we already in hell? It's classic Mitch album. Hope you enjoy it. It's on sale November 2nd. You may have seen this movie already. It's Quentin Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Usually there's a novel and they make it they write a screenplay to make a movie. We've done this in reverse with Quentin. Quentin had the screenplay for this movie. It was a much heralded movie. It was his number 9 of 10 movies he says he's going to do. 10 nominations for Academy Awards. It won 2. And a lot of you have probably seen this movie, so I won't go too deep into it, but it's set in 1969 in Hollywood. You've got our main character, Rick Dalton, who was a 50s television Western hero who's now in decline. His stunt double friend, who was actually a war hero. It's got Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate and Charles Manson in it. So what we've got here is a gift edition of a novelization of this movie. We also have signed up a long-term deal with Quentin, so he's going to do a standalone novel in the next couple of years. And there's some neat, gifty things in this edition that will hopefully make it even more of a holiday opportunity. It's got like the show in the movie was called Bounty Law. That's the movie that our main character was the television star in. And in this gift edition novel, there's also an original script for a Bounty Law episode. There's a Mad Magazine parody of Bounty Law called Lousy Law, and lots of behind the scenes photographs and posters from the movie and all kinds of neat stuff. Quentin Tarantino, if you're a fan like I am, it's a must-have for a holiday gift. Louise Erdrich, it's been a great year for Louise. Won the Pulitzer this past year for The Night Watchman. Congratulations to her for that. We're all book people, so we know Louise, but this really raises her profile for the rest of the world. We've got a neat book-related book here that Louise has done. It's set in a Minneapolis bookstore, haunted by their most annoying customer who just passed away. And it's not just any bookstore, it's Birch Bark Books, which is owned by the author, Louise Erdrich. And Louise also makes a small cameo in this novel, which is kind of fun where your author writes herself into a book. Our main character is Tuki, a Native American woman who was wrongly incarcerated, set up, and spent 10 years in prison, was a voracious reader in prison and is now working in this bookstore after she's been released. She's the one who has to cipher out why the ghost is there. It all takes place in 1 year, from All Souls Day 2019 to 2020. So you've got a strange year in Minneapolis, which includes a ghost story like this one, but also COVID is going on, and you're seeing the repercussions of the George Floyd killing. So it's a lot packed up into one, and I hope you enjoy it. It's on sale November 9th. Ann Patchett, our best buddy from Nashville. These Precious Days, these are essays. They're all kind of organized around the idea of not knowing how the story ends or unexpected endings. It's a collection of essays. The biggest one is called These Precious Days. It's about her friendship that she made through Tom Hanks. When she interviewed him for his collection of stories, she met his assistant, and they developed a lifelong friendship. but it's essays about friends, family, dogs, marriage, reading, writing. And she also writes about the bookstore that she owns in Nashville, Tennessee, with former Random House sales rep Karen Hayes. So Ann Patchett essays on sale right before Thanksgiving, November 23rd. Bright Burning Things is Lisa Harding. We're getting to the end of my list here. This is the last book for this year I'll be talking about. Lisa Harding is already an international bestseller. We're importing her to the UK. If you read Shuggie Bain, this might be a similar type novel. It's a kind of a look at an addict's journey towards rehabilitation and redemption. Our main character is a woman who is a former or aspiring movie star, but she has a drinking problem. And her career is not heading in the right direction, and the drinking increases. And if she doesn't get her life together, she's going to lose her kid. So it's all about her, the fact she has to give up her drinking or lose her kids, so she's got to get her life together. I can tell you that the house is really behind this one. There is a major national promotion opportunity going on with this book in December, but I can't tell you exactly what that is, but I imagine you could cipher that one through. If you think about a major national book club opportunity. That's my last title for this calendar year. I got one more slide that says, and coming up in the new year. I got one extra title I'll tell you about, like a bonus coverage. Lucy Foley, who you probably know from another national book club opportunity. Last year, Reese Witherspoon selected the guest list for her book club last spring, and we sold 1 million copies. Lots of readers. She writes a great locked room mystery, and this one's no different. The hook on this one is our main character Jess. She's struggling. Her career struggles, personal struggles. Her brother lives in Paris, Ben, and she says, Ben, I just want to come hang out with you in Paris for a while and get my life together. Ben's reluctant, but says, okay. She gets there and she sees this great apartment Ben lives in. She's like, how the hell does Ben have this place? But she can't find Ben to ask him. Ben's gone. She meets all the neighbors, and every one of them seems to have a reason why they could be involved in Ben's disappearance. So it's another locked room mystery, and nobody does it better than Lucy Foley. We have already, the jacket was just released on Reese's website, the Hello Sunshine group. They released a kind of special release of that jacket. So hopefully that means more working with Reese in the future. And that's on sale in February. And that's my Harper list. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to chat with you. I'm sorry we're not in person. I look forward to next year where maybe we can all be together again, but thank you for your time.
Excellent. So next up, we are going to have Tony Hetzel from Penguin Random House. And just a reminder to everyone that be sure to put your first and last name as you sign in. That way we're keeping track of everyone who's here. We are up to 108 of you, actually. And we will be doing our gift bags once again this year. We will, of course, be delivering those to DeKalb County Public Library branches. So you can pick those up at DeKalb County Public Library branches. And you can look for an email from us probably about the end of the week about how we will be distributing those. So right now, I'm going to share my screen once again and turn this over to Tony Hetzel.
Well, hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming tonight. Eric, what a list. Well, I saw a lot of good books I want to read there, but I've got some good ones too to tell you about. So I'm Tony Hetzel, and I represent Crown and Random House imprints for Penguin Random House. And I'm really excited for my first book, not that one, coming out tomorrow. This is O. William by Elizabeth Strout. So this is a Lucy Barton novel, and she was introduced in a previous book called Anything is Possible, and she wrote her own story in My Name is Lucy Barton. But now she's telling the story of her former husband, William, who is going through some difficult times, and he finds out a secret from his family's past, and he asks Lucy to go on a road trip with him to find out more about this secret. So you don't have to have read the other books to read this book, but I have a feeling that once you do, you'll want to go back and read them all. She's just a great writer. Next, I'm going to talk about Our Country Friends by Gary Steingart. And so you knew this was coming, right? There are going to be a lot of novels and other books about the pandemic, because what were writers doing during the pandemic other than writing? So this is Gary Steingart's take. And in his book, he writes about a group of friends that go to upstate New York. They are trying to ride out the pandemic in a country estate. So there's a lot of drinking, there's a lot of food, there's some infidelity, and there's some friendship, of course, but he tells it all with his quirky and absurdist style. He's had several other books, several novels and a memoir. So you can kind of think of this book like The Big Chill, but during a lockdown. And I wanted to show you this. The galley, this is the galley for the book. This was the cover direction that we were going in, but we decided to go with the cover on the screen that is more like the other books that he's written. So the next book is also a pandemic novel, and it is by Jodi Picoult. She normally gives us a novel every other year, but it seems like her pen was working faster too during the lockdown. So after the Book of Two Ways came out in hardcover in fall of 2020, we have a brand new hardcover from her called Wish You Were Here. And this is a book about a young woman who she feels like she's got her life planned out pretty well. And she and her boyfriend are getting ready to go on a trip to the Galapagos Islands. And the day before, her boyfriend, she thinks he's going to propose to her. And the day before, he says he can't go, that he's working at this hospital. It's all hands on deck for the pandemic. So he needs to stay behind, but she should go ahead. He doesn't think it's going to last long, and he'll join her there because it's a non-refundable trip. So she decides to go. But once she gets there, of course, as we all know, the pandemic goes on, and she gets locked down there and can't leave. And she starts rethinking her future. So if you've read Jodi Picoult before, you know that she writes a really great novel about important issues, and she usually has a big twist at the end. If you haven't read her, I encourage you to start with this book because this is Jodi writing at her very best. So you might remember in 2018, I told you about a story collection called An Elderly Lady is Up to No Good, and it featured an 80-something-year-old Swedish woman with a penchant for murder, but only for people who really deserve it. At the end of that book, Maud was concerned because investigators were investigating some detectives were investigating a murder that happened at her apartment, and they were becoming suspicious of her. So she decides to go on holiday. She takes a flight to South Africa, and on the way, she reminisces about some prior good deeds that she's done. And she starts thinking about all of the new people she's going to meet on safari and reconnecting with old friends. These books are really entertaining. If you like mysteries or fans of devilishly fun characters, I recommend The Elderly Lady is Not to Be Crossed. And kind of in the same vein, I've got another book called Your Guide to Not Getting Murdered in a Quaint English Village. This is by Maureen Johnson, and the illustrations are by Jay Cooper. So this is a travel guide for people who want to take a trip to the bucolic countryside of England, but they don't understand that there are grave dangers awaiting them around every turn. It discusses the people and places that one might not expect to be dangerous, but tells you how to avoid being killed by them. It's illustrated throughout, and it's perfect for Anglophiles, mystery and humor readers, avid travelers, and fans of the art of Edward Gorey. And next, you might recognize Erik Larson's name. He has written many nonfiction books, starting with Devil in the White City. He also wrote Dead Wake, and most recently, The Splendid and the Bile. This is his first stab at fiction. And it's set in 1905. It's a ghost story set on an island where a group of researchers has come together to investigate the disappearance of a family. As with his nonfiction, this is very well researched and grounded in history, but it does have an otherworldly aspect that I didn't expect from Erik Larson. So it is a ghost story, and it's only available on audio CD and audio download because, as the author says, ghost stories are best told aloud. And now some authors that you're going to recognize. This is the second Jack Reacher novel that was co-written with Lee Child and his brother Andrew. It's set in a small town where nothing is as it seems. A dangerous man rules from the shadows, and Reacher is out to bring him down in a lethal game of cat and mouse. But the loser is always better off dead. The book has received a starred review from Publishers Weekly, which is one of our industry magazines. So I'm really excited about that. And next, we have two books by Danielle Steele. She's one of our most prolific writers. The Butler, which is already on sale, which brings together two lives in Paris that are quite different. And then coming in November, Flying Angels, which tells the story of 6 women who became flight nurses and faced the challenges of war, shining a light on the unsung heroes of the time. So then we go to Debbie Macomber. Her book, Dear Santa, is a holiday novel, and those are extremely popular with her fans. And in the book, she demonstrates once again that there's no place like home for the holidays. And she writes about a woman who's down on her luck and finds that an exercise in gratitude can bring happiness. And that book is going on sale tomorrow as well. And I am finishing out the fiction section with a very exciting book called Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone. This is the 9th installment in Diana Gabaldon's Outlander series. And in the novel, Jamie Fraser and Claire Randall were torn apart by the Jacobite Rising in 1746. And it took them 20 years to find each other again. But now the American Revolution is threatening to do the same thing to them again. There was a Starz television program series about the Outlander series that really brought a whole new audience to Diana Gabaldon. So this is shaping up to be one of the biggest releases for the fall. And moving into some nonfiction, I will talk about Invisible Child by Andrea Elliott. This was started as a 5-part series in 2013, published in the New York Times, about a homeless girl named Daizani that captivated readers. She went on to expand that series, writing about 7 more years of Daizani's life, and she went on to win a Pulitzer Prize. It's a searing account of the family's struggle with poverty and addiction in a country that has repeatedly failed to address these issues with efficacy and compassion. Matthew Desmond reviewed the book, saying, "The result of this unflinching, tenacious reporting is a rare and powerful work whose stories will live inside you long after you've read them. We cannot understand that which we refuse to see, and Eliot forces us to look and to reckon." And this, we have at Penguin Random House, a program called Tidal Wave, where we all get behind one book nationwide, and Invisible Child was the one for the fall, so I'm really proud of that. 1,000 Years of Joy and Sorrows is a sweeping memoir from the renowned artist Ai Weiwei. In it, he tells his own story along with the story of his father, Ai Ching, a celebrated Chinese poet. He also writes about the history of modern China and how the Cultural Revolution affected his family. And most important, he talks about his life as an artist and an activist. The stunning cover design was created by Ai Weiwei, and his original line drawings are included throughout, along with a color photo insert. And next is the 1619 Project. It began as a standalone issue of the New York Times Magazine and proposes the idea that our national narrative is more accurately told if we begin American history not on July 4th in 1776, but in late August of 1619, when a ship arrived from Africa, bringing the first enslaved people to America. The book broadens the original project with 50% more material and new black and white illustrations to create a more comprehensive argument about the origins of the American people. It also offers stirring rebuttal to the critics of the project and makes a case for reparative solutions to the fissures created in the founding. The reporting garnered a record number of National Magazine Award nominations and earned a Pulitzer Prize for Nicole Hannah-Jones, who edited the book. It's going to be available in November, and there will be a children's book that goes along with it, released simultaneously. And Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown. This is a book in which she reimagines how during a time of tremendous uncertainty and disconnection, we find our way back to ourselves and to each other using a framework built over 20 years of her research. In the book, she takes us on a journey through 87 of the emotions and exercises that define what it means to be human. And she gives us the language and tools needed to build these connections. The book is fully illustrated throughout, and HBO is producing an 8-episode unscripted series to go along with the book. She's the author of Dare to Lead, which was a New York Times bestseller for 858 weeks. And now I'm going to talk about a few more holiday gift ideas. First is Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen. They became fast friends over their outsider status and developed a podcast called Higher Ground, where they discuss many of the issues that are important not only to themselves, but to their fans. Renegades will continue that conversation with subjects like life, music, and their enduring love for America. It's filled with photos, exclusive bonus content, and never before seen archival materials. And I've got a couple of cookbooks for you. That Sounds So Good by Carla Lolly Music. She became known for her Bon Appetit YouTube videos and has a large following on social media. In her new cookbook, she organizes the recipes by the needs that we have, like quick stovetop suppers and one-pot meals for weeknights, grain bowls and salads if you want to eat a little healthier, and then more recipes that entail more time for the lazy weekend lunches and all-day roasts. It's a nice paper overboard package with a retro chic cover and has 125 recipes. And next, Black Food is an exploration of Black culinary culture and the African diaspora. While it includes 75 recipes, it's not just a cookbook. It's an exploration of the Black experience through the lens of food. It includes recipes, poetry, and art alongside the recipes. The book introduces a new imprint called 4 Color Books, a division of Clarkson Potter and Tinsby Press, with Bryant Terry as editor-in-chief. And lastly, the New York Times is celebrating 125 years of its book review this year, is publishing this collection of reviews from their files. It's a really amazing book. It brims with remarkable reportage. It includes never-before anecdotes and from famous writers and spicy letter exchanges. It has a first take on novels that we now consider masterpieces, like A Pan of Anne of Green Gables, and it has a rave of Mrs. Dalloway. It has submissions from the likes of Langston Hughes, Eudora Welty, James Baldwin, and Nora Ephron, just to name a few. It's filled with stunning vintage photographs, and readers will discover how our literary tastes have changed through the years and how the book reviews coverage has shaped so much of what we read today. So that's all I have for you. It seems too early to wish you happy holidays. So I'm just going to say, be well until we see you next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony. There's some very, very exciting books on that list. And don't forget that we've been taking notes about your names, just in case you haven't managed to get them in the chat, and we're noting those down for you for the raffle. But right now, I'd like to turn this over to Diane Karpa, and let me go ahead and start the screen share for that.
Great, thank you so much, Joe. It is a little strange to be presenting our new titles here sort of halfway through the season. Normally we see you in August. And I'm actually not too far away tonight. I'm staying at the very, very beautiful Hilton Hotel in lovely Norcross, so not far away. So hopefully we'll see you all in person towards the end of next summer in August for the fall 22 list. So I'll start with Travels with George. Hopefully that'll be coming up here. Here we go. And the I've broken my presentation down into some nonfiction and then a number of fiction titles and then some celebrity biographies and a couple of gift ideas at the very end. But Travels with George is by the very well-known Nathaniel Philbrick. Of course, he's been a National Book Award winner for nonfiction for In the Heart of the Sea and been a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize as well. So he's taking a look here at George Washington, who, when he became president in 1789, faced a United States that was still a very, very loose confederation and definitely a political experiment. So he undertook a tour of the colonies or ex-colonies to talk to ordinary citizens about the government, to ask them to accept the idea of being the key thing, which is Americans. Then in the fall of 2018, Nat Philbrick embarked on his own journey into what Washington called the infant woody country, to see for himself what America had become in the 229 years since Washington made his trip. So it's a very thoughtful first-person account of it's kind of the dual trips between Washington and Philbrick. So Philbrick was joined by his wife Melissa and their dog Dora, and they follow George Washington from Mount Vernon to New York City to Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island and Long Island, and then back into the South to visit Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. And it moves smoothly between the 18th and 21st centuries and is just wonderful Philbrick writing. Then next, I have Anita Hill, her new book called Believing. Oops, bear with me one second here. I messed myself up on my. Sorry. Well, I'll just tell my notes are frozen up here, so sorry about that. But I will talk about Anita Hill and Believing. This is her. It's not a memoir so much, but it's more of a story of where women are today. It touches on gender, race, age, power, and talks about those very, I guess, issues that are tearing America apart right now. We're still facing them. So she offers insights into the roots of these issues and the paths to create a dialogue now and to make substantive change. So it's a call for action, and it offers guidance based on what she has learned from the decades of advocacy and searching for answers and finding them. She now teaches at, she's a university professor of social policy law and women's gender and sexuality studies at Brandeis. And next to Steven Pinker. Steven Pinker takes us into the 21st century. We're reaching new heights of scientific understanding. At the same time, it appears to be we're losing our mind. How can a species that developed a COVID-19 vaccine in less than a year produce so much fake news, medical quackery, and conspiracy theorizing? So he rejects the cynical cliche that humans are an irrational species, sort of cavemen out of time. And he explains that we think in ways that are sensible in the low text context, which we spend most of our lives, but we fail to take advantage of the powerful tools of reasoning that have been used over the millennia, which are logic, critical thinking, probability, and correlation and causation to face the challenges that we are facing every day now. So these tools are not a standard part of our educational curricula and have never been presented in such a clear and entertaining single book until now. Pinker is a Harvard College professor of psychology at Harvard University. Then Rebecca Solnit's new book, it's Orwell's Roses. You know Rebecca Solnit from her collections of essays. She's published many, many titles. She's published poetry as well. But here she's focusing on George Orwell and working in her biography of Orwell, kind of attaching it to the conceit of Orwell's affection for roses and gardening, and his rejection kind of his upper class upbringing, and his standing as a nonfiction writer and thinker, and talking about his anti-fascist and his feeling of equality, and talking about the politics of both nature and power. So she focuses on a very neglected area of Orwell's life, and it uses this to look at his actions from coal mines of England, which he toured, the fighting in the Spanish Civil War. He was wounded there, critiquing Stalin, and also to his analysis of the relationship between lies and also authoritarianism. Of course, you all know 1984, which is the final work of his writing, and is probably what we remember him most for at this point. So that is Orwell's Roses. And then I have Dan Jones. Dan Jones is a very, very popular writer and presenter in England. He has published quite a few books in England, and we've published a number of them here, including The Crusaders, The Templars, The Plantagenets, War of the Roses, and the Magna Carta. He's also wrote and presented a Netflix series, which hopefully many of you have seen, called The Secrets of Great British Castles. And he has a partnership development signed with Sony Pictures Television to do more work. But here he's looking at really the year 410 AD on up until the sort of the end of the Middle Ages. So we're talking about the fall of Rome, and then with no stable leadership, how the Roman Empire had to scramble to face many other challenges: climate change, pandemic, and migration. So very fast-paced nonfiction history, and many, many famous people, of course, wander through the pages here, from St. Augustine, Attila the Hun, the Prophet Muhammad, and Eleanor of Aquitaine. And another writer from England is Andrew Roberts. Most recently, you know him best from his biography of Churchill from about 4 years ago. It was a huge bestseller. But he returns now to England in particular to take a look at the reign of George III. This is the last king of America. Of course, America won its independence during the reign of King George III. And Roberts asserts that, you know, instead of being a sort of a buffoon and a terrible monarch and with a man with no redeeming qualities, he was indeed a worldview leader in England. He also, you know, was a family man, an enlightened monarch. He had to face very men who were out to destroy him, basically. And later in his life, debilitating mental illness, and all in all, bad luck, because he was King George when America really had to find their own freedom and their own way in the world. Then off to some fiction. Everybody's favorite is Lauren Groff. She has written a novel, The Matrix, very different from her previous 3 novels. And of course, she's published short stories as well. So it's the story of Marie de France, who's a young woman cast out of the royal court by Eleanor of Aquitaine. And she was, you know, seen as not really suitable for being in the royal court, too coarse and too kind of rough-hewn. So she's exiled to an abbey in England. They're just falling apart. It's not well led. They're on the brink of starvation. It's in the midst of falling apart. So Marie finds focus and love, and this is a novel of the process that Marie goes through to sort of give up her previous privileged life to accepting the abbey and becoming a leader for about 50 years, and makes it her own life and her own goal in life to make it work. I should also say she's shortlisted for the National Book Award too, coming up in November. And of course, a huge favorite is Amor Towles. We loved his Rules of Civility and A Gentleman in Moscow. The Lincoln Highway is very different, as are the two previous novels from each other. This is basically a road trip. There's four young men, two men who were in a work camp for underage or 17, 18-year-old men or boys who had made a mistake and were sent away to reform school, basically. He returns, the lead character's name is Emmett Wilson, Watson rather. He returns to the family farm. He finds that his mother is gone, his father's recently passed away. He takes his 8-year-old brother, Billy, with the aim to go to California to find his mother. But fate intervenes. There were two stowaways who came to that farm with him, and they redirect the road trip to New York City. And a very, very amazing road story. There's the wit and the humor, the intrigue throughout it. It can be also almost read as a mystery as well. But it's vintage Amor Towles and will be just beloved, as is The Gentleman in Moscow and Rules of Civility. My next novel is from a local author. Tiffany Unique grew up in the Virgin Islands, but she's lived in Georgia for some time, and she now resides in Atlanta, and she's a professor at Emory University. Her previous book was Land of Love and Drowning, a very well-reviewed book, frankly a smaller book in terms of its print run and its sales, but she's come up with her second novel here, and I believe we have the third one under contract as well. So it moves back and forth. The novel does, Monster in the Middle, back and forth across the Atlantic to the US, to the Virgin Islands, to Ghana, and then back again. And it talks about one couple's romance and how it's so tremendously affected by the family lore and love stories within that family, and that preceded their own marriage. She's an up-and-coming author, and more to come from her, we all hope. And then an old favorite here is Fiona Davis. She's back with another dual narrative novel, rather, I should say. She's really focused on these, and they've worked well for her. Here we have a novel that has one element of it. It takes place in 1919 when the Spanish flu is outbroken, and a young woman, 21-year-old woman named Lillian Carter, her life has fallen apart, and she works her way into the Frick estate, or which becomes the Frick Museum. So that's a historical aspect of it. And then there's a parallel plot 50 years later with an English model who's having a tough time with her career, and that she gets involved with the Frick residence itself, which is now, of course, the museum. So there's a murder that has taken place some years before, and the duality of the narrative kind of works out what happened over those intervening 50 years. So it's vintage Fiona Davis. And Ruth Ozeki. This is a novel of a young man. He's 14 years old. His name is Benny O. He's after his father passes away, who was a musician, Benny starts to hear voices. So he doesn't let it overcome him, but the voices become louder and more important in his life and tell him what to do or lead him different ways in his life. So it's a novel that doesn't have a straight through narrative. It takes you into many different angles, many different characters. It's a twisted, kind of riveting plot, and it deals with everything from jazz to climate change to material possessions. Ruth Ozeki's previous book for us was A Tale of Time Being, and still sells in best-selling numbers even today. And then another returning author is Karl Ove Sundgaard with The Morning Star. The last books we published for him were his 4 books in the season series, nonfiction. This is his first novel since My Struggle. There's a very wide-ranging cast in the novel. There's 9 different first-person narrators, each one who takes a long chapter. And this is a big book, as Karl Ove Sundgaard does write, so it's a handful. But each of the 9 narrations all winds up together at the end and is tied up, but there's left room for a sequel. So we'll think about what's coming on that too. So that's his newest. And then A Slow Fire Burning is Paula Hawkins. You know her from Into the Water a few years ago, and then about 5-6 years ago, the fabulously best-selling The Girl on the Train. One thing that Paula Hawkins does is write of characters who are just totally unlikable, and she has certainly accomplished that here. So there's 3 women here involved. We all have reasons not to like them. They are just tangentially known to each other, but a young man is found gruesomely murdered in a London houseboat on a canal. So it's all the 3 women. We don't know who to believe. None of them are totally good. None of them are totally bad, but we have to wait to the final pages to find out. So this is perfect Paula Hawkins, just a terrific mystery. Then down to John le Carré. He passed away, of course, fairly recently. He had left a novel behind with his estate that he wrote in 2014, which he entitled, or rather had planned for a posthumous publication. So it's a smaller book, but it does have his typical themes in that the dialogue between personal and political loyalty. So it follows a friendship between a high finance type guy. He's retired to the suburbs of London, and then some odd gentleman who comes into to his bookstore one day and draws him into this spy investigation that has worldwide consequences. So we're publishing this to time into what would have been Le Carré's 90th birthday this month. Then another mystery here is actually 2 books. Present the paperback first. We started this series, The Thursday Murder Club, last year in hardcover with Richard Osman. This is a story, a mystery series. It's lighter, it's a cozy in a way. 4 septuagenarians who meet in a jigsaw room in a retirement village to talk about unsolved crimes. And that's what they do. So their names are Ibrahim, Ron, Joyce, and Elizabeth. And they are aided by a young female police constable. Her name is Donna DeFritis. And the combination of the 5 do go on to solve the mysteries. And then the newest one, and that is the next slide, which is the Man Who Died Twice. So this continues that series. All the characters are back. It's a very dry British sense of humor to the mysteries, and it's just wonderful. It won't be a long-lived series. And down to Ken Follett. He's done something new here from what he's not done in the last couple of decades, which is write a thriller. So in this case, it's an international thriller, a standalone book called Never. That's a spy versus spy for sure, intelligence agents and terrorists, and very intricate plot. You remember him, of course, from the Pillars of the Earth. What really broke him out in the first place was a thriller, international thriller of the day, which was Eye of the Needle, and was made into a very popular movie at the time as well. So this gets into diplomacy, to terrorism. Typical Ken Follett will be wonderful. And then a few biographies here, celebrity biographies, a memoir. The first one is Will. This is Will Smith. It's a big book he's written with Mark Manson. You know him from a series which I think Harper publishes, The Subtle Art of Not Giving well, I won't say it, an F, I guess. But here is Will Smith's story, his life story of his transformation from a child in a West Philadelphia home to one of the biggest rap stars, movie stars, a writer. Everything he tries just is terrifically successful. He has legions of fans, and they will all be eager to read, what his life story in Will. Then Capote's Women. This is by Lawrence Leamer. He talks about the women that Truman Capote groomed as his friends in New York City. So big society women, from Barbara Paley, Gloria Guinness, Maria Agnelli, Slim Hayward, Pamela Churchill, and ZZ Guest, Lee Radswell. So he made these fast friends of these women, at least they thought. But he was also working secretly on a novel. It was supposed to be called Answered Prayers, and it was never published, but a few chapters were published in Esquire magazine. And in it, these women found that he had betrayed their friendships. He had used their lives very thinly disguised in a not flattering way for what would have been this novel, Answered Prayers. So this is the story of these women of an era gone by. And then Nick Offerman, you know him from his TV shows, or the show rather, where he played Ron Swanson. Here he's taken trips around America. So there's 3 trips he took. He did one trip to Glacier National Park with Jeff Tweedy and George Saunders, and then another one with his friend James Rebanks at the same time, or near the same time. Then he and his wife, Megan Mullally, bought an Airstream trailer and chose to drive across America in late 2020. So this is deep thinking from Nick Offerman, but funny. He loves America. He loves the outside. He loves being in his own man, and just a terrific notes on America, I guess. Then just real quick, here is 3 gift books. We have the American Christmas Stories. This is a collection from Library of America. It's in a nice hardcover edition, paper over board jacket. And it's 150 years over the last, since Christmas has become so important in America. And I believe there's about 80 some stories in here, Christmas stories. Some are not very Christmassy, but authors include Louisa May Alcott, Mark Twain, Dorothy Parker, Pete Hamill, John Updike, Amy Tan, and many, many others. And then the book on coloring, the Color Bible, I should say, not on coloring. But this is really a nifty book. I have a little hardcover edition. It is hardcover, but just beautifully bound. It talks about colors, different shades of each color. For instance, they go over probably 12 different shades of blue. And just beautifully presented, very giftable. Good attractive price to us, $25, but a lot of value for the price in this book. Then 2 cookbooks, the Korean Vegan cookbook. And you would say, well, how could Korean cooking be vegan? But the author says that the ingredients from the author's childhood, her name is Joanne, which I won't try to pronounce them in Korean, but fermented soybean paste, chili sauce, seaweed, and such are fully plant-based. So that's what her recipes are. But more than that, it's really a story of her family's voyage from Korea to America. So it's a Korean immigrant story, a successful one, and a beautifully produced cookbook. Then lastly is Joshua Weissman. You know him hopefully from his blog, YouTube channel. He has 3 million plus subscribers. He does very, very fast-paced cooking episodes, anywhere from, say, maybe 6 or 7 minutes on up to maybe 18, 20 minutes. He's irreverent. He's a huge following on YouTube and also other social media. And that's my list, I believe.
Excellent. Thank you so very much, Diane, for that. And Jessica, you are the last person to report in tonight. So did you want to share your screen, or did you want to forward me the presentation and I could do that for you, or how do we want to do that for you?
Oh, I already forwarded it to you, so I thought you had it, but I could share my screen. I have it pulled up if you would like me to do that.
Yeah, that may be easier. I didn't see that. I'm sorry. And while we're doing that, let's not forget to just go ahead and remind you all about the raffle. We've been minding the chat and taking all of your names down and things like that. Don't forget, the pickup will be at a DeKalb County library. So if you win, we will get in contact with you. And there are some great books, some of them that you didn't even get to see. If you're probably looking at my screen over here, you see there's the wonderful Gregory Maguire book. That is the New Start. Well, it is the prequel to Wicked. And you will get to hear those wonderful stories in that series as well.
Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep, perfect, Jessica.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, thank you all. I'm sorry that I had a little bit of technical difficulties in the beginning, but it's wonderful to be here and to present to all of you. I live in Nashville and I sell the Knopf Doubleday side of the list. So a lot of literary fiction, history, poetry, biography, all that. And I am going to kick off with some fiction favorites. The first one, what is going on? Okay, there we go. The first one is a novel by, many of you know him, I'm sure, Colson Whitehead. He is a two-time Pulitzer Prize winning author for The Underground Railroad and The Nickel Boys. And this is a new novel from him that just went on sale back in early September. And I can say with assuredness that this does not disappoint. He is still at the top of his game. And this, I think, might be one of my absolute favorites that he's written so far. So if you like a good crime novel or a good heist novel, then this will be for you. It is features the main character. His name is Ray Carney. And as he says in the beginning of the book, Ray Carney is not really crooked. He's just a little bent. So this is set in Harlem in the 1960s, and Ray is working in a furniture store when he decides to make a little extra money for his family to start moving some hot goods through the back room. And of course, he eventually gets on with a larger crew. They try to take on one of the largest heists that's ever been done, which is a holdup of a famous hotel in Harlem. Of course, things go horribly awry. But this is really, I think Colson described this book as a great family saga kind of wrapped up in a heist novel. So there's a lot of heart to this book as well. And if you want something that vividly brings the Harlem of the 1960s to life, this would be a great one to check out. My next one, we all know John Grisham. He is back with his legal thriller that he gives us every fall. This is called The Judge's List, but this one is a little different and really kind of interesting twist for Grisham. He is featuring the main character who is a serial killer. So it's the first time he's taken on a serial killer as a main character in his book. And it's really twisty and plotty. It also features a character from The Whistler. If you've been reading Grisham for a long time, you might recognize Laura, who was the detective from The Whistler, who reappears in this book. She is the one who has been responsible for solving a murder in that book. She revisits a crime that is another open case that has to do with a judge who has a list of victims that he is interested in taking down. And she is eager to take this judge down herself before ending up on his list. So very twisty legal thriller from our friend, Mr. Grisham. Then another book that I'm really excited about is called Murder Under Her Skin. This is the second novel in what has become a new series for Doubleday Books called the Parker and Pentecost series. So we put out a book last year called Fortune Favors the Dead. And this is a great hard-boiled noir set in 1950s New York City. The thing I love about this is that the two characters, the detectives, are really ballsy, very brash women, Lillian Pentecost and her sidekick, Willa Jean Parker. And together they are solving crimes in 1950s New York. Murder Under Her Skin involves a murder that has taken place at a traveling circus. So if you're looking for a really great new mystery series, I would definitely recommend these two books. Stephen Spotswood is a screenwriter by trade, and he turned to novels. Fortune Favors the Dead was his first one. So really snappy dialogue, really great characters and scenes that, no surprise being a screenwriter, just take you right into the heart of the action. So I love this new series. My next one, if you are a fan of Peter Heller, who has written a number of books, he's a house author with Knopf, and he is probably most famous for his book, The Dog Stars, which has a lot of avid fans from years ago. But The Guide, his newest book, which went on sale in August, is somewhat of a follow-up to The River. If you read that book that came out last year, although it really can be read as a standalone, it just features the same character, Jack, who works as a guide at a very prominent hunting lodge in Colorado. And he hears on the evening of one of his biggest guide trips, he's been assigned to help a local celebrity, a female celebrity who really just wants to get out on the river and trout fish, but she has no idea what she's doing, and he's going to help her and take her out. They hear a blood-curdling female scream at the lodge where they both are staying, and this kind of unravels a mystery that Jack is tied up in, where he finds that the lodge he's been working at for some time may not be exactly what it seems. So the New York Times has called Peter Heller just the absolute consummate poet laureate of the literary thriller genre. So if you like a really good thriller, but you like it to be well written with solid literary prose, then Peter Heller is your guy. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about some new notable debut fiction from some writers that you've probably not heard of before. And these are books that have either just gone on sale or will be going on sale this fall. So the first one is, again, a literary thriller, Alex Schulman. He might be giving Peter Heller a run for his money, but Alex Schulman is a Swedish writer, and this book has already been published in Sweden. It rose to the #1 best-selling, it was a #1 bestseller on the charts over there. If you've been reading much in the literary thriller genre, you know that the Scandinavians just have a toehold in really good, twisty thriller crime fiction. So Alex Schulman hails from that long list of notable writers. And the flashing backwards in time, finding out that there is this huge family secret. Oh no, am I back?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, I'm
Just
sorry.
about
My
to make
internet has
technical
been really,
difficulties.
really spotty. Should I hop back on and share again? And
Yeah, go ahead, and let's just go ahead and take it from right where you sort of like bounced out. It was The Survivors.
The Survivors. Okay.
Hmm.
Let me see if I can share my screen again. Okay. All right. Are we back?
Yes, that looks good, Jessica. Yes.
Okay, thank you all. I'm so sorry. 20th century technology, right? 21st century, sorry. So I was just saying Survivors, this is a really great new literary thriller about this 3 brothers and a family secret that they are uncovering as the book flashes back and forth in time. If you like Ian McEwan, I think that he is another writer that comes to mind. The book Atonement, this felt a lot like that, very atmospheric and twisty. The next book that I absolutely loved is a book called Ghosts by a new writer, Dolly Alderton. She is a British writer. And this is a super fun, very much a Bridget Jones type of book about a young girl, a millennial girl living outside of London who has found herself on a dating app. She is coming out of a big breakup and she meets this man. They fall quickly in love with each other. And Ghosts references being ghosted and what ends up up happening as their relationship unfolds very furiously. And then mysteriously, this man just disappears from her life. And so I'm not giving anything away. There's a lot more to the book than that, but that is kind of where the title comes from. And this is just a fantastic comment on dating. If you're interested in getting a glimpse into what the world of dating apps looks like, I think Dolly writes it with a lot of heart and candor and wit. It's very, very funny. And there's also a lot of just depth to this book, as the main character is also dealing with her father, who has developing Alzheimer's, and kind of having to go back and watch his condition deteriorating, and they're quite close. And so there's also a lot of family love that kind of comes up. But this is just a lot of fun. Like I said, if you like Bridget Jones, I think this is kind of a Bridget Jones for the 2021 era. The War for Gloria. This is a new book that absolutely broke my heart. It is not an easy read. It's definitely quite a heavy tearjerker of a novel, but I think this book has the chance at landing on a lot of year-end best of lists, maybe even getting some major award attention this fall. The reviews have been glowing and coming back, just saying what a spectacular read this is. So this is a coming of age novel, and also, as it says here on the slide, really a gripping page turner. It features a young man named Corey, who is in his early 20s. It's set in a working class New England town on the coast of Massachusetts. Corey is living with his mother, Gloria, who has just been diagnosed with ALS, which this book has some of the most raw writing about ALS and what this disease is, which was just kind of very intense to read about, but heartbreaking as well. But as Corey feels a lot of responsibility caring for his mother, Gloria, his father, who has been absent for his life and is really kind of a violent, toxic presence, has decided to re-enter, thinking that he can also help with the situation. And really this becomes kind of a tense family drama as these three characters orbit around each other and affect each other in some really interesting ways. But I think one of the things I loved about this, I love a book with an ending that nails it. And Atticus Lish weaves a metaphor of war throughout the book and pulls it all together in the end that I just was quite speechless and kind of had to reread a couple times and let it sink in. But really, really strong, like I said, very beautiful literary novel. Chronicles from the Land of the Happiest People on Earth. This is a book from Wole Soyinka, who is a Nigerian writer, and Wole was the very first African to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. He has now been followed up by the latest Tanzanian writer who just won the Nobel Prize as well and was recently announced. But Wole is a writer, an activist. He's Nigerian. He writes really interesting, politically active and funny and biting cultural commentaries from his native country of Nigeria. And this book sits very comfortably in his pantheon. So we are really excited to publish this. This is his first novel in 50 years. So it's been a huge publishing event. Wole was on the cover of the New York Times Sunday Book Review last week, if you had a chance to pick that up. And there was a great kind of celebration of him and his body of work, but also a wonderful review about this new book, which is, like I said, set in modern Lagos. It is a story of a political elite. It's kind of a cultural biting commentary on the political elite, but there's lots of drama and intrigue and murder and crime and everything that you could expect. So it's a great read. And now some big biographies and memoirs that are coming or have already just landed. The first is my absolute favorite, Beautiful Country. This book went on sale in early September, and it was a read with Jenna book club pick. So if you heard Xin Julie Wong on the Today Show talking about this, she's a wonderful writer, speaker, and I just was quite undone by the story of what she writes about here in Beautiful Country, which was coming to the US at the age of 10 in the 90s with her parents, undocumented, and landing in New York City's Chinatown. And so that's kind of where the book starts, and it really follows mostly the first couple years of her life as she is navigating the city as an undocumented child with her parents. But the thing I liked, so this book has a lot to it. There's a lot to discuss if you were to read it for a book club, or just even diving into some of the issues surrounding immigration and being and the challenges that undocumented citizens face. But the thing I also loved about it is it was not an incredibly heavy book in the way that this could be. There's a lot of lightness to this because the voice and the tone is one of a child, and Julie really goes back and accesses that voice. And so in that way, it kind of reminded me a lot of Angela's Ashes, which, if you remember, was kind of Frank McCourt's story about growing up in poverty in his native Ireland. I also put on here that there are some good comps like Educated and The Glass Castle. I think it sits comfortably in those memoirs, which are just visceral and raw and really capture a very strong voice of the writer. So Shun Julie, just some other interesting facts about her. She wrote this book on her iPhone, commuting into New York City from Brooklyn to her work at a law firm. This also is an inspiring story of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, as she has become a successful lawyer in New York now, working for a firm that does a lot of work with immigrants and human rights cases. So she's a fantastic woman, and this is just an incredible story of resilience and hope. Madam, this is a really fun biography of a woman named Polly Adler, who ran a notorious brothel in New York City during the Jazz Age. So if you want to just get plunged back into the 1920s and get to know a really wonderful, ballsy woman who entertained everyone from politicians, celebrities, to prohibition runners and mafia men and gangsters, and just the whole gamut. This was who was frequenting her brothel. She was a notorious woman and a really snappy, interesting lady. So I've been getting just a lot of great reads from some booksellers on this. There has been some references to a book by Karen Abbott, Sin in the Second City, which did really well a number of years ago, and people are saying that Madam reminds them of that. So a really fun biography of a very little known woman who had a pretty big presence in the Jazz Age. And then I'm sure you all know Billie Jean King, the woman who has been said to be the first glass ceiling shatterer for female athletes. This is her big first completely authorized autobiography, All In. She has been doing a ton of media for the book, has been out talking about it. She just really bears all in this, and it's a really inspiring memoir. So would be a great read for yourself, or if you have any children or grandchildren that are young female athletes or tennis stars, this would make a great book, as it's an incredibly inspiring story. And then some nonfiction for everybody. First, we love Rick Bragg. I know that you guys here in the South many of you are fans of him. And this is a new book that he has written, a collection of essays about his sweet dog, who he calls Speck. And he is the speckled beauty. And Rick got Speck when he was diagnosed with cancer. So it was kind of a really pivotal point in his life when they came together, and they have just an incredibly beautiful friendship and bond. So I think, wonderful, kind of no-brainer holiday gift book for any dog lovers in your life, or Rick Bragg fans, or just fans of great Southern storytelling. And I will say, spoiler alert, in a good way, that the dog does not die. So you can confidently read this book and know that you will not suffer an incredibly sad ending. Rick is also doing very well too. He's been out on the road doing even some book signing and some very safe in-person events for this. H.W. Brands, he's a really well-known historian who puts out about one big history book every year. And in this one, he is taking on the American Revolution, which he is calling America's very first Civil War. And he has a really interesting take on what he means by that. So this will be one of our big history heavy hitters for the fall. The Correspondence. This is a really excellent book about some intrepid women, female journalists that made it out to the front lines during World War II, going out into some incredibly dangerous terrain to cover stories. It is nonfiction, but it reads like a novel. This is very page-turning, very gripping. I put over here that if you know the book D-Day Girls or The Secrets We Kept, this would be a wonderful book to consider picking up if you were fans of either of those reads. I can't remember all 6 of the correspondents, but I know Martha Gellhorn is one, as well as some other notorious women. And like I said, if you just love World War II, if you love that era, if you like books about women making their way in a man's world, then this will be really fun for you. And then some holiday favorites. Lydia Bastianich, who has a number of successful restaurants in New York City and is a co-owner of the Italy franchise. She has a new cookbook coming out, A Pot, a Pan, and a Bowl, which is meant for just simplistic, more at home. She does a lot of rustic Italian style cooking. So she's beloved. Her recipes are delicious. I can attest. I cook from a lot of her cookbooks. And this is a new one from her coming out just in time for the holidays. Colorization is a really interesting book by Will Haygood, who is a Pulitzer Prize winning historian. He won for his book Showdown, or excuse me, he won for the Pulitzer for his book The Butler, which was made into a movie with Lee Daniels. So he is taking on in this book 100 years of Black film and looking at how Black people and Black culture has been portrayed in Hollywood and film. So this is a huge doorstop of a book, but it is chock full of fascinating stories, anecdotes, facts. There's pictures, lots of, this is a real value, a really good value for $30 for what you're getting. There's just so much memorabilia packed into these pages. So for any film buffs in your life, or anyone that also is just really interested in the depiction of Black culture and kind of the evolution of that, this would be a really fun book for them for the holidays. And then Murakami, you know Haruki Murakami mostly from his novels and his short stories, but he also is an avid t-shirt collector, and he has a robust collection of t-shirts that he has picked up from all over the world. And in this, he is showing us these t-shirts. They're going to be photographed in some really interesting ways throughout the book. And then he is accompanying a lot of these shirts with just really insightful and fun and little side essays about, what the shirts mean to him and where he picked them up and why they're important and why they've made it into his collection. So I would say this is a must for any Murakami fans, and his fans, if you know, are rabid. So I think this will be a real collector's item for many of those folks. And then just a quick little preview of our spring books. I have 2 big ones that I just really wanted to talk to you about and give you a little teaser for what's to come. And the first one is a new novel from Hanye Yanagihara, who you may know from her book A Little Life, which catapulted her to fame when that book, actually not quite when it came out, it kind of had a slow burn, but now in paperback it has sold over 1.5 million copies worldwide. And To Paradise is an epic new novel coming from Hanya in January, mid-January. In brief, it really is a comment. It is her take and grappling with America as a paradise or not. That's kind of the central question that she's examining. She started writing this book in 2017, and it takes place in 3 time periods. It starts in 1893, it then goes to 1993, and then it moves into 2093. And each time period features a central character who is grappling with issues around family and race. And there's an illness that kind of besieges each of these characters and really alters the course of their lives and causes them to make some very difficult choices that then they have to live with. So it's a big book. It, like I said, it examines a lot of heady topics that Hanya is often brilliant at taking on. So I am so excited. This is going to be a major publication. She's going to be doing a lot of media for us, which she did not do for A Little Life. So I think people are curious about who is Hanya. And we'll be launching with a CBS Sunday morning author profile on her. And then she'll be doing the late night show circuit. So we'll finally get a chance to hear from her about this, which I think will be really exciting. And finally, Emily St. John Mandel, who I know many of you are familiar with the book Station 11, which catapulted her to success. And then she followed it up with The Glass Hotel, which came out in March of 2020. I think it was the first big novel to pub at like the first week of the pandemic. But despite that, it actually sold incredibly well. And Sea of Tranquility comes out in April, and in some ways is a companion to both of these books. Emily St. John Mandel is doing something really interesting. She's kind of building a universe where she's threading themes and characters from her previous two novels into this one, but you again do not have to have read those to appreciate this book. You can read it truly as a standalone. It's a really beautiful atmospheric book that deals with time travel and has some themes around metaphysics. And there's three, again, similar to the Hanya book, three time periods. One is the early 20th century, one is the mid 20th century, and the third is late into the year 2044. And there's a character who's living on a colony that's been established on the moon. But where the Hanya is 792 pages, Emily St. John Mandel accomplishes looking at these timestamps and the importance of them in a mere 250 pages. So it's a much shorter book, very pithy, but really, really beautiful, and will be a huge publishing event when that comes out in the spring. And that is my list. Thank you all so much for listening.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica. And actually, I believe I remember when you presented Station 11 at one of the fall book previews several years ago, which is funny now that, you know, when you look at someone who has several books to, it's like, oh yeah, I remember when that first book came out and we first heard about them. Which makes these things great. So thank you so very much. Once again, everyone, we'd like to thank Jessica and Diane and Tony from Penguin Random House. And we'd also like to thank Eric from Harper Collins for this evening. We will be getting a hold of you all shortly in the days ahead to let you know if you are a winner and where you can pick up those great bags of books. But thank you all so much for keeping the chat lively and enjoying our 8th annual fall book preview. We hope you all will pick these up in bookstores and curl up with them on the couch or give them as gifts. You may even find them in your local library as well, if you're not looking for them on your local bookstore shelves. But we do encourage you to shop at our local independent bookstores who have done so much during this pandemic to make sure that we have the books, the puzzles, and everything else literary folks need. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening, and we will see you all again very, very soon. Have a wonderful night.